Hello, Grots and Gits, episode number 2 today. Guys, I'm so excited about this detachment, and I took another look at it after we did today's earlier preview for the detachment. And so I've come up with a bunch of different strategies and using the brain trust of the Happy Crumping Wargaming Discord, which you should absolutely become a member of because the members section is where all the conversation actually goes. We do have a free section to answer questions and help people out, but the members section where it's all haps is where all the magic happens, and it is where you can support the channel and help me continue to grow. So in there, we've discussed a bunch of different tactics and strategies of how we're going to use this new detachment. So I'm going to bring all of that to you right the heck now. All right. First off, guys, Lion's Blade rocks. This detachment is absolutely awesome, and it might actually be better than Gladius. I'm not saying it is better than Gladius, so cool your horses, don't freak, but it might actually be better than Gladius, which is freaking amazing. So we're going to address some of the sickest things that we can initially do off of what we've come up with for this detachment. And we're going to address plenty of the most potentially powerful strat in the game. There is the most powerful strat in the game. We're going to talk a lot about that and how we're going to use it. And I'm going to give you an entire list to start from. But basically, I'm going to give you strategies and like tactics that you can use for all of the units in this detachment. And while this might not be a full comprehensive Dark Angels like mastery class, there's going to be a lot in here that a lot of people probably haven't thought of, and I'm excited to bring it to you. So first off, let's just identify what is in the Ravenwing, because these are the guys that's going to be able to proc your +2 to charge. It's going to proc a lot of your stratagems. So the Ravenwing is Outriders, ATVs. By the way, people forget that you could take these ATVs by themselves, which means they're a 60-point solo unit that is going to proc all of the Ravenwing keyword benefits for this detachment. That makes them awesome. Like 60 points for procking everything that you need to proc is sick. Remember, we can make them move through, we can make them Kool-Aid Man through walls. We can make them give us +2 to charge. We can make them give us -1 to be hit. There's just a lot of +1 to wound. There's just so many things that keyword gives us. Black Knights, you've got Samael, and yes, Samael is usable. He's still a little expensive, but he's usable now. You've got the Chaplain on Bike, who might actually be a real choice. You've got the Ravenwing Command Squad, which is a real choice. All Storm Speeders, and just as a little aside here, guys, if you wanted to take I think it's the Thunderstrike to give +1 to wound, it might be the Hamstrike, it doesn't matter which, but I think it's the Thunderstrike that gives +1 to wound. You can stack that with using your strat on another unit so that you can have two different units that are going to be +1 to wound in shooting in this detachment, which is very, very powerful, especially when you consider the fact that you're going to desperately want the Storm Raven. Yes, it's toxic, and yes, it's back. This detachment loves the Storm Raven. And then lastly, the Dark Shroud, which is, and all the other vehicles that fly, the Nephilim, whatever, the things that you'll never take. But guys, the Storm Raven has the Ravenwing keyword, which is awesome, because that thing moves 20, and now with your Kool-Aid strat, you can just make him move straight through a freaking wall. We'll get into that. Anyway, let's start with Samael. Now, this is a combination that I love. It's probably one of the least efficient ones in the detachment, but it's still actually pretty sick. And I can see it taking place in certain army comps. Not everyone. All right, so basically, you're going to have him lead a unit of Black Knights or Outriders. And I think you're probably going to always choose Outriders because they give you that auto advance thing. So he gives you access to advance and charge and fall back and charge. Now that we're in this detachment, we can Kool-Aid Man straight through walls. And since the Outriders give you auto advance 6, you can just guarantee an 18-inch move going straight through a wall, which means you will charge what you're trying to charge. That will now proc the +2 to charge, which you want off of your deep striking Terminators. This is a very potent combination that can not guarantee, but incredibly enhance your opportunities for forcing your opponent to what do you call it? Or for enabling your deep strike charges, which is really darn strong. And then, just as an aside, not this won't come up very often, but it's pretty darn sick. Both the detachment roll for Ravenwing means that if you fall back, you have to take a desperate breakout, and if you're battle shocked, it's at -1. And then Samael's ability also makes you at -1. There's no limit to the caps of this. So if you fall back from Samael's unit when you're battle shocked, you actually die on desperate escapes from ones, 2s, 3s, and 4s, which is kind of insane. It won't come up all that often, but it's pretty awesome. But this is child's play compared to what the rest of the detachment can do. But that's a really sick one. Then you have the Storm Raven. All right. You start him in hover. You make sure you take a Dark Shroud, so he has stealth. He's got AOC. He's got -1 damage. Basically against most armies, maybe not most, but there's a lot of armies in the game where you just don't care if he's visible turn 1. Then you get to use 1 CP for Knights of Iron, which means he just moves directly through walls. So you don't care that you have to pay for the movement going up and down walls, because you just move 20 inches straight up the board. You get to drop off a Dreadnought, you get to drop off Terminators wherever you want. This can be used to position your Terminators or your Dreadnoughts in very advantageous positions super early on in the game. Imagine dropping your Deathwing Knights in that perfect staging area where it would take you normally 3 turns of advancing and being shot to get them into. Just do it turn 1. Very, very potent and very, very powerful. The Storm Raven also being Ravenwing, there's playing words there. This is going to enable all of your other strats, and once again, the +2 to charge. This is so incredibly strong and so incredibly powerful. One of the things that I like to do with the Storm Raven is I like to drop my Terminators off in a position that if my opponent wants to charge the Storm Raven, because I started them in hover, my Terminators are then going to be able to heroic in to cause bad things to happen to the people who charge them. All right. Now let's look at the Lord of the Hunts. All right, Lord of the Hunts. This is an awesome enhancement that you're going to put on your chaplains on bikes. In your turn, you get to fall back from a screen, for example. Let's say that you're tied up. You can fall back over the screen to intentionally take a desperate escape test by falling out over the models. But with the enhancement, you get to re-roll those desperate escape tests, which is really darn exciting, meaning you're not going to lose any models. And then you get to move your full distance and charge, I don't know, something that you really want to tie up or something that you want to proc the +2 to charge for your Deathwing, for your Deathwing units. This is super darn strong. I think I actually wrote this wrong. It cannot go on a command squad. I think it's limited to chaplain, lieutenants, or captains, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, maybe I'm mistaken. Give me 2 seconds. Let me read on that. This is going to be... Oh, just any Ravenwing model. Yeah, so you can put it on command squads. So I'm just going to ignore the fact check that I just gave myself. It was a false fact check. Fake news. Anyway, so super interesting, super cool little strategy there. You can use it with Outriders or Black Knights. If you're trying to deal like some damage in melee and honestly take advantage of the fallback and shoot, Black Knights are not a bad option. They just happen to be 10 points more than the Outriders. So I'm not saying that you don't take on Black Knights. It's actually a pretty interesting choice. Then let's take a look at the Deathwing units. We talked about some of the Ravenwing units, but let's talk about the Deathwing units, because this is where the real magic happens here. And one thing I wanted to take a moment to talk about is, so I went on TTS, and I just made a little picture so that you guys could understand just darn how powerful Inescapable Wrath is, because I didn't understand it when I first read it, and so I think I may have misled a few people on my video earlier today, unintentionally. So just take a second look at the wording, guys. This is potentially the best darn stratagem in the entire game. I know I said that about the 6-inch pylon and consolidation that the Death Guard got yesterday. I stand by that. This is also potentially the best stratagem in the game. Basically what it means is these stupid freaking 40-point Gretchen will never, ever, ever again steal an objective from you by out-OCing you. It just will not happen. Because now your Deathwing units, whatever they are, whether they're Dreadnoughts or whether they're your Deathwing Terminators, or heck, even ICC or Blade Guard Vets, whatever, they get to charge 6 inches, any unit that's within 6 inches at the end of your opponent's charge phase. So these guys who are hanging out on this objective, these Terminators who are about to get it stolen by Gretchen, they're just going to charge. They're going to slaughter the Gretchen, and then they're going to be significantly closer to the enemy in your turn. It gets you tons of movement, it makes it so you can't be move blocked, and it also makes it so that you can't have your objective stolen by an OC bomb. Holy crap. This stratagem is unbelievable, and it's definitely vying for best stratagem in the game. So anyway, the Deathwing units that we have, we've got Deathwing Knights, we've got Deathwing Terminators, we've got Blade Guard Vets, we've got Inner Circle Companions, Stern Guard, Van Vets with Jump Packs, the Land Raider, Repulsor Executioner, and your Dreadnoughts. So there's a variety of units. And just as an aside, I want to talk for just a brief moment about how good the Deathwing Terminators are. Now, a lot of people think that Terminators in general are a little underwhelming, but I think one thing they're forgetting about the Deathwing brand of Terminators is your Deathwing Terminators ignore all modifiers to hit, wound, all modifiers to weapon skill, ballistic skill, and to hit. They ignore modifiers, guys. This is a really big deal. Imagine you're playing the Plague Company with Death Guard. These guys don't care. They're not -1 to hit. They're not -1 to their weapon skill or the ballistic skill. These guys are actually Terminators that are worth the cost. They also have the normal Terminator ability of +1 to hit against your Oath of Moment target and the Teleport Homer unit. So these guys are actually probably worth the cost. And with the impending Terminator buff, which is coming on up, which maybe I need to do a video on that because a lot of people probably don't know about the big Terminator buff coming out. Yeah, I'll do a video on that. I'll get to it. But you heard it here first. There's a little thing, and I'm coming back with it for you probably tomorrow about that one because it is juicy. Anyway, they are really worth taking a look at. All right, so now let's talk about some of the strats and how they work with some of the Deathwatch units here. Or Deathwing units, not Deathwatch. That's another thing that's going to be sick. I'm so excited for December, man. GW is crushing it. All right. You get a stratagem for +1 to wound during shooting. That stratagem is going to be the Illuminating Fire. All right, what units for Deathwing really love that? Well, the Repulsor Executioner freaking loves it. Do you know how many guns? This thing is the personification of Danny DeVito. It's like, so anyway, I started blasting. Every weapon on this thing wants +1 to wound. Every single one of them. It's unbelievable how many guns it has and how much efficiency it's going to get for being +1 to wound off of all of it. The Land Raider Redeemer loves +1 to wound. Suddenly, its multi-melters are wounding on 4s, not 5s, into the big nasties. And its Flamers are strength 6 +1 to wound, which means it gets all the big nasties in the game. It's wounding on 4s or 5s. This is so much stronger. It's wounding all infantry on 2s. I guess like Custode infantry, you could say it's wounding on 3s. But still, it's so dang good. Then the Ballistus Dreadnought is a big fan of +1 to wound. Azrael with his Hellblasters. Yes, everybody. Azrael with his Hellblasters. Get the Deathwing keyword. Is this the time? Do we see Hellblasters back? We are Dark Angels players. I'm not going to say I'm a Dark Angel player. I'm a Blood Angel player, but damn, guys, this is starting to try to convince me to try the First Legion out. This might be the time where we actually see Hellblasters on the table, because when they get +1 to wound with the sustained hits from Azrael, you could also put the Apothecary in there to be resurrecting them. And you can transport them in a Storm Raven because, oh my goodness, this detachment has a lot of tools. It might actually be the time for Hellblasters. All right, let's talk about the Land Raider here. So I did a little thing on TTS just to show you how freaking far you actually get to move. So what I did is I took a Land Raider Redeemer and I put it on the line of a Hammer and Anvil deployment. I then moved it 12 inches forward. I did a 3-inch disembark. So you can see that I moved 15 inches with a normal, or effectively moved 15 inches with a normal infantry unit. So right here I set Azrael with the Inner Circle Companions. And I'm not saying do this, but I just want you to understand how fast this detachment is. Now this would normally give you a 9-inch charge if your opponent is deployed on the line like these silly orcs are, which is not necessarily a good strategy because that's only a 47% chance of success if you want to re-roll the charge roll. However, in this detachment, you could have also have charged them with a Ravenwing unit, say I don't know, freaking Storm Raven, or a Samuel leading a unit of Outriders or Black Knights, and then be at +2 this charge. So instead of needing a 9 on the dice, you would need a 7 on the dice turn 1 with infantry. This makes you fast. This thing, you put whatever you want in it. Then you also get +1 to wound with its shooting because of the strats. You also like all the other Dark Angel units anyway. Like this thing loves having stealth, just like from the Dark Shroud, for example. It's just so fast, and it gives you a lot of really interesting plays. You get +1 to wound. You get this thing loves Dark Angels, and it loves this detachment in particular. Let's talk about some of the Dreadnoughts. These things adore this detachment. You get the Ballistus, the Brutalis, and the Redemptor. I'm not going to talk about the Venerable because it's, pour one out for your homies. That model's dead. GW. I don't know why they're bothering to support it. All right. So the Ballistus in shooting just loves +1 to wound. No doubt about it. The Redemptor loves +1 to wound, and he also loves +2 to charge. The Brutalis loves +2 to charge. And don't forget, if you use Inescapable Wrath, or you Heroic Intervention, or Intervenum for that matter, this bad boy will cause his mortals on that charge. In the stratagem, it says you do not get the charge bonus for using Inescapable Wrath. Most people misunderstand what this means, so let me clarify for you. The charge bonus in the core rules is very clearly defined as fights first. The charge bonus itself is fights first. So when you charge, you get to fights first. That's what happens. However, when you Heroic Intervene or you use Inescapable Wrath, you do not get the charge bonus. But that doesn't mean you don't get the other effects of charging. I understand why some people are confused by this, but let me clarify it 100% right now. The charge bonus that the rules refer to specifically means the fights first ability. You get all the other benefits of charging, though. So you would get the mortal wounds, or if you're playing Blood Angels, you would get, say, +2 strength and +1 attack. World Eaters, +1 attack, +1 strength, all these things, right? So just don't get confused by that. So these dreadnoughts are in love with this detachment. And don't forget, a Storm Raven can transport a dreadnought and 12 infantry. It's pretty silly. Let's talk about some specific character builds, and then I'm going to give you 2 different army lists to get started with on your journey to playing the First Legion. One, there's some really cool little character builds that you can do here. We talked about a few of them already. So the captain, with or without Terminator armor, okay, both of them are very viable and very usable in this detachment. First, let's talk about the captain without Terminator armor. So just the normal foot captain. Give him +1 damage, led by assault intercessors. Suddenly, you activate his first to the fray, +3 attacks, +2 strength, and then he gets a power fist. Boom, boom, boom. This bad boy goes to dev wounds with damage 3 that he gets to re-roll wound rolls against if you're attacking an opponent on an objective, or just re-roll wound rolls of 1 if it's just if your opponent's not on the objective. This guy slaps because dev wounds 3 is a big difference from dev wounds 2 for precisioning out characters or for actually just taking down big boys. It's just a world of freaking difference. Now, the captain in Terminator armor also wants +1 damage because +3 damage 3 power fist be good, right? But he doesn't necessarily need it. He desperately wants the uppy downy enhancement, however. But we'll talk about the uppy downy enhancement just a little bit in just a moment. Now, let's talk about the Judiciar. This guy loves +1 damage as well because he already has dev wounds and he has precision. So suddenly he can actually snipe out character models with a high-ish amount of reliability, which will then make him actually use his ability, because he very rarely gets to use his ability where he just gets a bonus attack for killing a character. But with this enhancement, suddenly he gets to do that, which is really dang cool, because this detachment likes your inner circle companions. It likes some of the things that the Judiciar is actually going to be leading, which is pretty dang cool. Now, let's talk about the captain and chaplain in Terminator armor specifically. They are in love with the Fulgus Magna, which is the uppy downy enhancement. This enhancement will allow you to, at the end of your opponent's turn, pick them back up into strategic reserves. Now, this is something that confuses a lot of people as well. Maybe I need to do a video specifically for just things that confuse people. But let me just clarify here for those that you are watching. Yes, if you go second, this means that you can pick your models up at the end of your opponent's first turn and bring them back down in your turn 1. The restriction on arriving turn 2 from Deep Strike applies to units that started the battle in Deep Strike. It does not apply to units that started the battle on the table, which is why a lot of you get confused about whether or not you can come in turn 1 from Deep Strike. According to matched play rules, you cannot come in turn 1 from Deep Strike if you did not start on the table, which is almost everything that Deep Strikes. With Uppy Downy, this applies to Grey Knights, this applies to Demons, this applies to basically Hypercrypt Necrons. You can actually come in turn 1 if you're arriving via a mechanism like Deep Strike. It does not work if you're arriving from a mechanism like Strategic Reserves. And that's where the real confusing, and GW did a bad job of writing this, but Strategic Reserves is Deep Strike is a specific form of Strategic Reserves. So Deep Strike, yes, you can come down turn 1. If you start on the table. Strategic Reserves, no. I'm not going to get into the nuances of why. That's just a different video, but just to keep it simple for right now, I'll leave it there. I'll get into the nuances of why in a different video, I promise. All right, so they love the Fulgus Magna. Now, let's give you 2 army lists to get started with. Guys, remember, these 2 army lists, while they're good and they're exciting, there will be better army lists. There's going to be a lot of cooking that's going to be done with this detachment. There's going to be some really cool stuff that's going to be coming out, but let's start with these 2 army lists, okay? Where to start? Here's the first one. I'm going to give myself Asriel. I'm going to take a chaplain in Terminator armor. He's going to have the uppy downy enhancement. And then I'm going to take a Judiciar with the +1 damage enhancement. We just spoke about why. I'll have a Tech Marine, 2 units of Deathwing Knights, 1 unit of Deathwing Terminators. Of course, the chaplain will attach to the Deathwing Terminators. 6 Inner Circle Companions. We're going to give the Judiciar the privilege of leading the Inner Circle Companions. 5 Scouts. 1 unit of 5 Scouts. 3 solo Invader ATVs, because those things are just really good for proccing all of the Ravenwing portions of the detachment. Double Ballistic Dreadnought, because those things are just freaking good. And then we're going to have a Storm Raven gunship. This bad boy is going to have the twin plasma cannon. He's going to have twin multi-meltas. He chews through elite infantry. He chews through normal infantry with his twin-linked hurricane bolters. He's also Ravenwing, which means he can just move wherever he wants, and he can deliver those inner circle companions in a place where they will not be shot turn 1. Or turn 2, which is very, very critical, so that they can then start to utilize heroic interventions, and they can utilize inescapable wrath and all these really great abilities. So that's the Storm Raven's job. He's then just going to go on and cause freaking mayhem. Azrael in this detachment is probably running around on his lonesome, and that is totally fine. All right, so that's one list. Now I'm going to give you a different list, which is well, I've affectionately called it pure toxic murder. And this is done by a guy in my Discord. His name is Adam. You guys might know him by Yog, and he is a rock star, so that's all credit goes to him for this. I hate it, and I'm going to feature it because it's pretty sick. Anyway, he also decided that Azrael is a good choice. He's taking 2 captains in Terminator armor. Remember, these guys give you reroll charge rolls, and the cool thing about having the reroll charge rolls is in this detachment, a lot of times your deep strike charges are going to be you're going to be needing 7s to make the charge, simply because you have the Ravenwing units there. And a 7-inch rerollable charge is actually pretty freaking easy to make. Doesn't mean it's 100%, but it's a pretty easy to make. He also takes a Tech Marine. That's just generally they're going to be for points. One captain in that detachment, by the way, is going to have uppy downy, and the other one is going to have +1 damage. There are then going to be 2 units of 5 Deathwing Knights, 3 Inner Circle Companions. That's probably going to be running with Azrael. You're going to have 2 5-man scout squads, a Dark Shroud, a Redemptor Dreadnought, which is very interesting to see, and I actually think it's quite decent, and then double Storm Raven, which is pure toxicity, and everyone in existence hates it. Now, in this particular detachment, a lot of times you probably will start the Deathwing Knights inside the Storm Ravens. You're probably not even going to be starting them in Deep Strike, and that's okay, because the Storm Ravens are going to do what I just described with the other list. They're going to move up, they're going to deposit their Deathwing Knights in places where they can't be shot, but they're way closer to the opponent's lines in turn 1 than your opponent would prefer for them to be. And that's going to be a big, big problem. The Dark Shroud is going to make it so everything's going to be -1 to be hit and shooting, and everything's going to have cover, and it's just a total freaking toxic menace. This list rocks. So guys, give these things a try. Let me know if you like some of the strategies from this new detachment. If you don't like the new detachment, just have a little patience, guys. These things take a little bit of time for everyone to figure out all the nuances of, but trust me, this thing freaking rocks. I'm not saying it is better than Gladius, but we might find out that it could be, because there's a lot of stuff cooking in the kitchen here. Anyway, if you like the content, like, subscribe, share with your friends. Happy Corrupting Wargaming. Until tomorrow, happy Corrupting. Bye-bye.